Okay, we are currently recording, so I'm going to just kind of reset here real quickly. So again, welcome to our event. We've gotten some more members join us. And so I am going to be hosting today as the communications director. My name is Aníbal Soler, and this is our agenda for today. So I just want to make sure, again, we are going to try to honor our time. And if we do this well, we'll be ending before our 11 o'clock end time. As our current president likes to say, it's always good when you end early. People always appreciate that. So a little bit about our organization, the New York State Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents. And, you know, one thing that's not often said was this was the brainchild of just a bunch of passionate and dedicated Latino educators who really saw a void in our state, a significant state that services many Latino children. And so our mission has been to advocate for aspiring and current Latino and Latina administrators by promoting best practices, professional learning, communication, and networking to support the growth of the Latino community throughout New York State. Again, we are, and you'll see this later, we are the largest percentage of students outside of white students being serviced in New York State. And so you'll see that later on. Our core values, where we like to reference them as ACE, is advocacy, collaboration, and empowerment. And so it's a nice acronym, but that's our focus. Those are the three things that guide us as an organization. And those are the things that we continue to focus on in our events and everything that we do. Our purpose and our goal as an organization is to link aspiring current and retired school administrators from across New York State who have either Latino or Hispanic backgrounds, who are interested in supporting local and regional and statewide efforts to support the teaching and learning of all New York State students. But for us, the focus is on increasing the outcome of Latino and Latina students in New York State. I often like to tell people, because we get this question a lot, and so I want to make sure I make this plug, is that, you know, I'm not Latino, can I attend your events? I'm not Hispanic, can I attend your events? I always tell people we're Latino based, but we're not Latino exclusive. So we'll take anybody who is here for the cause, anybody who wants to support our work. So I do definitely want to make that plug. Oftentimes some of our other Black and brown sisters don't often feel like they fit in. Well, you know, if you know anything about Latinos, we are all blends. And so just look at the computer screen, you see variety of shades and pigments. And so, you know, I just want to make sure that, you know, you don't have to be a Spanish speaker or be from that background. You just have to be dedicated to the cause of improving the outcome of Latino and Latina students. I'm going to now introduce a mentor of mine, my brother. He's been the NYSALAS past president, Dr. Roberto Padilla. He's currently the superintendent in the Newburgh Enlarged School District. He's been there, I believe, over 6 years, if my memory serves me correctly, which is a long time to be in one place. And he's going to be speaking to us this morning around equity. And if you know his work, you know that's what guides his work. It's what he's grounded in, and I think you're gonna enjoy what he's got to say. So please join me in welcoming our next speaker on equity, our past president, Dr. Roberto Padilla.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Aníbal. And it's great to see so many people joining us on a Saturday morning. And you are 100% right. Although the official conclusion to Hispanic Heritage Month ended, we're going to keep going because celebrating our traditions, our customs, and cultures doesn't end on an American calendar. So I just again, very encouraged to see everyone and want to just thank you for taking some time out of your Saturday morning to join us. It's been a complete honor and privilege to serve in the role of president over the last 2 years. And I'm extremely encouraged by our regional directors and officers who will continue to lift this work as we move forward and grow as an organization. I'll be joining David Baez as we lead the Council of Past Presidents in order to continue to serve and support the organization. So I want to take a little bit of time this morning to just touch on something that we're all talking about, we're all thinking about, we're all struggling with, and that is educational equity and access. So Niva, I'm just gonna just tell you to click forward. So we're all familiar with this particular image, and there's so many of them, right? There's the one with the baseball field. There's one of students trying to reach an apple on a tree. And this is just another iteration of something that we're all grappling with as we're trying to either teach in classrooms, lead school buildings, or lead systems across New York State. And the beauty of today is that we have representation from all the way from Long Island up to Buffalo and everything in between. So again, I just couldn't be more thankful that you're joining us. The key message that I want to leave everyone with over the next couple of slides is that we have to be very cautious. And what I mean by that is this seems like the appropriate time to talk about equity. This pandemic has put a spotlight on some serious educational barriers that our leaders face and our students face. And we have to keep the momentum forward, but we can't become equity fatigued. And what I mean by that is it seems right to now talk about equity. And everyone on today's symposium, you didn't just start talking about equity because COVID hit. This has been driving your work in your respective position. But how do we shift from just talking about equity to actually doing equity? And that's the key point for this morning, is that we have to move from rhetoric to action. I'm convinced over the last 6.5 years of leading the Newburgh School District, and my school system is a microcosm of New York State, that our communities don't need more talking about equity. They know what the problems are. And every time I go into a particular community, a particular school district where people are talking about equity, they're not surprised. So if our communities and our families aren't surprised by the issues, then I think we have a multitude of entry points to really start getting this work off the ground, right? So here it's about moving from rhetoric to action. How do we treat equity as a verb? In doing so, that means you and your respective teams have some real opportunity to advance equity in your respective school systems. Let's move forward. So the one question that I get all across the country when we start really digging into what does it mean to move from rhetoric to action is, where do we start? And this is where everyone's context is not going to be the same. So it's not a silver bullet. What happens in New York City is going to be very different from what happens in Long Island, Monroe Woodbury, and Rochester, and Buffalo, which means that you have to be very grounded in the local context in which you serve. But a couple key pointers here. So if you are truly courageous and willing to lead the work of equity, then you have to recognize a couple of key components. And that is, you have to acknowledge that you can't do this alone. And I would go a little bit further to say, you shouldn't be arrogant enough to think that you can actually do equity work alone. So who are your partners? This work can only get done in collaboration. So another way of just saying this is, who are the individuals in your community that everyone goes to when they need assistance? Get those people on your team and build social capital. The second point here is, again, understanding your local context is, where are the risks? What has been tried in the past that failed? And what's the appetite of your school system to really go a little bit further in this work? So identify your risk, but always present equity work as opportunity. You have to lead courageously. And that just means you have to, again, understand that there are going to be many risks and opportunities in doing this particular work. But when you tap into the social capital fabric of your community, you'll begin to encourage other people to be as courageous as you're willing to be. As you all know, equity work has caused a lot of pain over many, many decades. So our families have gone through school systems that have pushed them out by design. And so we have to create spaces where people can talk, they can express, they can share their particular experiences. and then treat those spaces as opportunities to heal. And then the last point here that's worth making is that start where you can start. So your context might be a little bit different than Syracuse. It might be a little bit different than Rochester. It might be a little different than what happens in the South Bronx. That's okay. Every one of us has an opportunity to engage in this work somewhere. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of spaces where potentially, if you're someone who is courageous, who has been doing this work, but needs to build more social capital, needs to create safe and healing spaces, then where might you be able to start? And again, this is not a list of right or wrong. This is just some ideas of where school leaders can start. Next slide. So again, in the spirit of moving from rhetoric to action, how are you governed? How is your Board of Education on board with this? What policies and regulations should you start to address to ensure that they're in fact student-centered and that you are removing barriers that have perpetuated so many children of color from truly meeting their maximum potential? So one idea is to take a look at policies and regulations. This seems to be a common place for a lot of people, and that is, what does your data say? Let your data speak for itself. So that is a smart entry point into this work. Break down your data. What does disproportionality look like in your school system? Who truly has access to advanced courses? How diverse is your workplace? Right? So it's you presenting what exists in your system and then identifying opportunities to start. A particular area could be addressing your grading policy. Believe it or not, if we were to put all of our grading policies up, we would see dramatic differences that prevent children from actually meeting their potential. So I'm offering that as a possible entry point because that's exactly what we're doing. After 6 years, after addressing data, after addressing policies, we're now tackling how children are actually graded and how our retention policies look like, etc. Another potential common area that I think is not actually common, but should serve as an entry point is who has access to real nutritional meals, right? Is your community a desert? Do children and families truly have access? And I'll just for a point of pride, Newburgh has the third best breakfast program in the entire country for 3 years in a row. Now we surfaced that as an equity issue because we knew not all children had access to quality meals, and all 12,000 of our students every single day have access to a free breakfast and a free lunch. So we said, let's remove that barrier. Let's make sure no child in our schools ever go hungry or sitting in a class wondering where their next meal is. And as you know, if someone's sitting in class hungry, they're not concentrating on their work. So that is truly an equity issue. And as I indicated before, who truly has access to your most advanced courses that you offer, right? And so what we're looking at, and I know what New York City has done, is that AP for All as an initiative, taking away interviews, taking away previous grades, taking away any other criteria that would prevent any child who wants to push and challenge himself or herself. And then lastly, and this is just to the spirit of building social capital, is that you cannot do this alone, and you should not attempt to do this alone. And so how are you shouldering up with other courageous leaders in your school building, in your school district, in order to truly advance the work of equity and access? And in our particular community, we explicitly talk about our desire to partner with people and to collaborate with them and to bring them into that circle, to bring them into the family. And we do that by this particular image of shouldering up. So again, just a couple of entries. If you're just wondering, where can I start? I'm really interested. I really want to get this work off the ground. This is just but a couple of potential areas where, leaders can start. Next slide.
So, Dr. Padilla, that is the end of your slides. And, again, I just want to thank you for just giving us a glimpse of some of the work that you do as an equity warrior, as your code name, one of the many names that he has around equity. But we truly appreciate your perspective. If you want to know what's being done, I would encourage you. I know now all the rules have changed about visiting districts and things of that nature, but at some point, if you're a leader, aspiring leader, you want to spend some time with Dr. Padilla at Newburgh. He's doing great work. I think there's even some Newburgh staff members on the chat call. I think Pedro, I thought I saw his name on here, who works with Dr. Padilla. So if you're looking to connect and network, I definitely recommend you spend some time with him. Again, this is about giving you a little bit of a sample of what our Latino leaders are doing across the state. And we hold Dr. Padilla as an equity expert as well. And so thank you, Dr. Padilla, for those words. We're going to transition now to our next presenter, and someone who is also a juggernaut across the state when it comes to the work as a superintendent, Mrs. Elsie Rodriguez, who is currently superintendent in Monroe Woodbury, which I've learned is a great shopping location. So I do want to put that out there. If anybody knows anything about shopping, I want to make sure that you definitely know that that is the place to go to. So while you're also going to go see her work, you can also go shopping as well. So at some point, but Elsie's going to speak to us this morning around a topic that's really important to us as an organization, and that's Latinas and leadership. And so I'm not going to take any of her thunder away, but I'm going to just welcome Elsie Rodriguez.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I want to echo Roberto's comments this morning about just thanking you for spending Saturday morning with us in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month. And I just want to talk a little bit as we began to discuss the role of our organization. We felt it was really important to share some data regarding the students we serve in New York State, as well as diversity within those leadership roles. I felt it was even more significant to discuss the roles of Latina superintendents. So I want to go back. In 2019, an educator diversity report was submitted to the governor of New York. The intent of the report was to look at the role that diversity plays in education, but more importantly, the role that it plays in educational equity. And the goal of improving educational equity has been a focus since 1978, when the Rubin Commission was established to study the issue of educational equity. So this is going back a long time ago, this work. And so the commission highlighted the disparities in educational services. And since then, the Board of Regents and the New York State Education Department have made strides in establishing equity and also creating pipelines of educational leaders. However, when you look at the data shows that unfortunately those encouragements, those movement up have really not happened. And so one of the things that I want to talk about is, how do we as an organization support Latina leaders, Latina superintendents? How does this organization help you to a path of district leadership? Because I can tell you personally, as a superintendent, I've been a superintendent for 6 years, the path has not been easy. I have had to be a assistant principal, director, assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, and then become superintendent. So it took me about 20 years to get to the position of superintendent. And I think that what I lacked was having another colleague or another Latina help me along the way. And I think that that's what this organization is trying to do. Can we go to the next slide so we can just look at the data? So when you look at the data, you see that we have approximately 732 districts. And more importantly, when you look at the makeup of the students that we have, 27% of our students are Latino. And that is critical to making sure that we have Latino leaders in district roles. In addition to that, when you look at the makeup, and again, the bottom number is really coming from that 2019 study, 10% I want to say that again, 10% of leaders in leadership roles in New York State are people of color. When you look at Latino leaders in New York State, we're about 4%, which means that, and if you go to the next slide, there's another slide. When you go to the next slide, this is probably the most discouraging or concerning, is that we have approximately less than 2% of Latinos leaders. And when you talk about women, we're less than 1%. So the question becomes, why is that significant? And so, Anibal, can you go to is there another slide? I may have missed that.
No, you just have the one in the beginning with your question.
Yeah, can you go to there should be another slide prior to that, or did we take that one out? There were some other pieces.
No, that's all I have.
No worries.
I want to speak to it.
So let me just talk a little bit about why that's important, right? So when you see that there is such disparity between Latino leaders, people in leader positions, it's important because studies have shown 4 things. One of them is that when you have Latino leaders or people of color, there is a significant long-term impact on academic success of students of color. Leaders of colors are viewed as advocates and cultural translators. When you have Latino leaders, it benefits the entire community by increasing familiarity and leading schools to employ culturally responsible practices. And New York schools with Latino or Black administrators are more likely to employ a greater percentage of teachers of color. And so why is that important? Because ultimately increasing the number of leaders of color in school administration enhances the voice of historically underserved groups in decision-making, and therefore bettering the representation of diverse experiences and histories of all students, and improving teaching and learning. And ultimately, that is our goal, right? To improve teaching and learning. So this organization moving forward is we're going to make a commitment specifically to support. My role is to support women in leadership roles, because it is incumbent upon us to be represented. So with that, and I know that Dr. Mauricio is going to talk a little bit about specifically what we're doing as an organization, but we felt it was really important to talk about or highlight the lack of Latino leaders in district leadership roles throughout the state. So thank you.
Thank you, Elsie. And again, I apologize if there was a technical issue of us missing a slide. We'll be sure to add it and get it up there. So I apologize.
No, it's okay, because as a Latina, I always have a backup.
Yeah, that's another benefit of Latina leaders. They always figure it out.
We always have a plan B. We're always prepared.
Yeah, I'm seeing you're getting some snaps in the chat room. You're getting some kudos in there. So I definitely want to applaud you. And again, I meant what I said. You know, everyone we have speaking here is someone you should, if you're an aspiring administrator, if you're an assistant principal, if you're a director and you're looking for these roles, these are people you're going to connect. And one thing about us as Latinos is we're very authentic, and we engage. We don't shy away from fostering relationships and building on one another. So if anybody here in this room and you want to connect, obviously use the chat box as a way to maybe share information, figure out how you can connect with each other. But again, I meant what I said. You need to go see Elsie in action. She is in a community that she stands out as one of the only Latinas in that kind of community, but she's doing significant work, and she doesn't let that change what she does. So we are a little bit ahead of agenda in the schedule. We are waiting for our keynote speaker, so we're going to skip around real quick just to make sure that we give her enough time for when she arrives. Dr. Rosa, when she arrives, I have not seen her join the room yet. But if she does, we will go back to her and bring her. So I'm going to make an adjustment, because that's what we do here as Latinos. We're able to jump around a little bit. So just bear with me here. I'm just going to jump over a couple slides.
Actually, I've been on.
Oh, you have been? Oh, I did not see you. Okay, great.
I listened to Elsie's presentation.
Oh, beautiful. Awesome. Well, listen, even better.
Plan B and the whole 9 yards. Thank you, Elsie.
You know what? I didn't recognize your code name here, Dave. That's the problem. So, so I didn't see you in the thing, so I apologize. Well, welcome, Commissioner. I'm going to transition this now to our current president, Dr. David Mauricio, who will be introducing our keynote speaker. So, Dr. Mauricio, over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Mr. Solar. If you can just give me a thumbs up, if my audio is coming through.
Perfect. You are fantastic.
Excellent, excellent. It is my great privilege to introduce our keynote speaker for this morning. My name is David Mauricio. I'm the proud superintendent of the Peekskill City School District. And I'll talk a little bit later about what we're doing as an organization. But at this moment, I have the great honor to introduce our keynote speaker. She began, and when we talk about the pipeline in leadership from a position of providing resources and opportunities for children to the highest level post in New York State, we think about someone like Dr. Betty Rosa. So she began her career as a bilingual paraprofessional. She then became a teacher in the New York City School District. She was a reading coordinator in the district as well. She became an assistant principal. Then she became a principal. She pioneered efforts to integrate multiculturalism and multilingualism in her schools. She also pioneered inclusive practices. I was so proud to read this as a former special education director of integrating students with different abilities with general education students as well. And then when I worked in Buffalo to launch community schools initiatives, I read about the work that she did in New York City schools as a pioneer of community schools movement decades ago. And her work was phenomenal, and it is leading community schools work today. She also founded a top-rated school in New York City, exemplifying that sí se puede, that it can be done. And there are no excuses for our kids achieving to the highest levels. And she is a pioneer in that effort. She was then tapped on the shoulder to serve as a regent in New York State in 2008. And then by her colleagues, she was elected as chancellor in 2016 and then reelected last year. And I don't have to tell you that that accomplishment is huge in our state and in our nation as well. She holds a master's degree and a doctorate degree from Harvard University. And just in her spare time, she also achieved 2 more master's degrees as well. And as you know, Latinos and specifically Latinas, they really move forward and get things done for their family and their community. So we're so proud to see that work as well. My father used to say, if you want the job, you have to work twice as hard as the other person. And I won't say the rest of what he said, but the reality is that we have to work twice as hard to get to where we have achieved. And she is exemplifying that as well. And it is a great honor in recognition of Hispanic Heritage Month, in recognition of all what that we do, to introduce to you Interim Commissioner of Education and President of the University of the State of New York, Dr. Betty Rosa. Welcome, Dr. Rosa. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you. Similar to Elsie, I had to go to a plan B because my technology was not initially when I signed on. It was a bit of a challenge. But I want to start by saying that I had a couple of days ago kind of worked on my keynote speech. Yesterday, I spoke to Roberto, and I started to think about what I truly wanted to share. And obviously, in terms of celebration, this is a time to celebrate and honor our culture, our language, and our heritage. And we can't lose sight of that. And we know that during this period of time, we have to hold on to what makes us the kinds of leaders that we are. And when we think about it, we know that that's grounded in our culture, our language, and our heritage. And that is so critical for all of us. I want to circle back. And so I made a couple of changes because I really wanted to talk a little bit also about this crisis and how we respond in terms of what we now call leading during a a crisis and crisis leadership. So I do want to spend a little bit of time on that. But at the same time, I'm going to kind of split my presentation into the thought of some of our key leaders, and I can't think of somebody more important in my life as another Bronx Latina as Sotomayor, Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor. And she talks about the Latina in her is an ember that blazes forever. And she says we must keep that fire in our lives, and we must lead with compassion, empathy, hope, and focus. And so for all of us that are doing this work during this challenging time, we still have to remember that we have to lead with, as she states, the compassion, the empathy, the hope, but keeping our focus. We also know that we are currently surrounded, and most of us in leadership know that we're dealing with a lot of noise, and we're dealing with a lot of misinformation and clearly divisiveness. At the same time, we are challenged to counter that culture of distraction. And one of the things that I often think about is that we as leaders must take out the garbage every day. And that's got to be part of our healthy process. We know that as we're dealing with this global crisis, unless we take out the garbage every day and empty it out from our system and our institutions and our organizations, we know what ends up happening. It keeps piling and piling. As leaders, it's important to deal with, obviously, and we're seeing more and more of this, institutional and systematic barriers and many of the roadblocks in our communities. I want to pause for a second, and as in the introduction, I do want to remind people that one of the things that has been interesting as a Latina woman is that on the Board of Regents, I am the second female, but I am the first woman of color, the first Latina in 243 years. And it's, and while I'm extremely proud of that, it's also very, in some ways, very disconcerting to know that it's taken us 243 years to take our rightful place at the table. And that speaks volumes of how our institutions and how our system operates. But at the same time, as Roberto reminded me yesterday, we must recognize our place in the fabric of this tapestry in this country. And we must add our beautiful culture, our language to the quilt. And we have to do that by our presence, our advocacy, and by giving voice as part of the solution. And without having the opportunity to sit at the table or pull a chair over, we really know that it is very challenging. Sometimes we accept, in many ways, the Lone Ranger role, and we somehow see ourselves at times as the only, whether it's in a school, in a district, in a particular community, in the state. And it is so important to reach back and make sure that we create the path, but we also bring along those that are starting to enter the process. We cannot do this without reaching back and making sure that we create a network that gives voice to our work, but also continues to expand on that work. We can no longer think of ourselves as the only individuals in this process, but rather multiplying and then knowing how to do that work. I know that during this crisis, we are dealing with cognitive, what I call overload, where information sometimes is incomplete and sometimes the priorities that we're dealing with clash. And we have right now, most of us are dealing with a lot of emotions and anxieties, and they're running pretty high. You are dealing in your districts, as we're dealing at the state, with every single day is a survival. And today's survival is going to create the success for tomorrow. Most of you, I know, speaking to some of you, have created war rooms with dashboards of priorities. And I can feel it from the conversation. I know, Anibal, you're having a smile on your face because I know you have a war room. I could tell from our conversations. You have your dashboards of priorities, not the dashboards that other people are creating, but your own dashboards. You're creating networks for your connections with your local leaders. All of you are trying to make sure that you have your thought partners, and that's important. People that think like you, but also people that think differently, because it is through our similarities and our differences that we get to better places. I know most of you in this crisis are acting with determination, a sense of shared purpose, but more importantly, my conversations with many of you gives me a sense that you're also focused on humanity and kindness. I know that you recognize that everyone is anxious about the health and the finances. And how do we weather this storm? And how do we navigate the crisis as effectively as possible? And obviously, the one thing that I know, and Elsie said it well with Plan B, is that we are comfortable with ambiguity and sometimes chaos, and we know how to deal with those issues. But as we navigate through this turbulence, and you as the pilots with your co-pilot and your crew are adjusting to changing circumstances, you're improvising, you're redirecting, and many of your information you are interpreting. And we know that we will make mistakes along the way, but we're learning as we go. We are going to learn our way forward and figure out the future together. And this is what this conference and all of us coming together reminds us, that we are in this together. But I know that we will emerge from this experience collectively stronger. And I am so grateful to know that all of you are contributing every single day, not only to the lives of our children, to the lives of our staff, to the lives of our community. And I'm so grateful that you're part of my team, and I'm grateful to be part of your team. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Betty Rosa. I'm going to just give some closing remarks on your keynote back to our president, Dr. Mauricio. If you could just say some closing words to follow up on such an inspirational and powerful speech that we just heard from a historic Commissioner of Education. To me, the term interim doesn't mean anything. You have broken a barrier. You have broken the ceiling. You've set a new landmark for many of the young women who are listening to this and who will be hopefully watching this, to the superintendents who are currently in this room. It makes, for me, what I just witnessed is like, it makes it possible for Elsie to have the reality that she could become the next commissioner in New York State, or that Maria could become the next commissioner. So, but I won't take any more words from Dr. Mauricio, so he can close this out. So thank you, Dr. Rosa.
Thank you, Dr. Rosa. It's a true honor to have you here today, and your words of inspiration in the chats. I see amazing, inspiring. I see multiple comments through text and through our comments that really you are giving us hope. And when I think about alas, it's translated as wings. And a couple of things come to mind when I think about your leadership in the role that you're in, and equally important, all that you have done in your career for thousands and thousands of students and administrators and parents. And when I think about alas, it's two things. One is you need alas to take flight. And when you watch what birds do, they have to at some point take the last leg off of the nest to take flight. And that is about being bold. It is about being encouraged. It is about being supported, but it is about action. And that is what speaks to me by your leadership and knowing about what you have done. But alas also is if you look at engineering, a plane cannot take flight without hitting resistance. It needs resistance in order for it to fly. And we are in that moment. Dr. Padilla and Elsie Rodriguez and our keynote speaker spoke about what is it going to take to move forward in our organizations, and more importantly for our children. And so you truly exemplify that, and we really appreciate all that you have done. I would say I probably am going to start if it's okay with you, a petition to remove the word interim from your title, and if you want it. And I think you have numerous people, thousands of people across the state that would support that. If that is in your pathway, we wish you the very best. We hope that all that you desire for our state, and we thank you for being the leader that you are, and God bless you, and God bless New York State school education as well. Let's give her a big round of applause, and let's give her a visual clapping as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
And back to you, Mr. Silver.
Yeah, so thank you again, Dr. Rosa. I know that you'll be stepping out. We just wanted to thank you for your time, spending it with us on this Saturday morning. I can't imagine what your calendar looks like. So even giving us this little sliver of time with us this morning was great. But again, for me, that's what this is about, this organization. And she has been here from the very, very beginning before we even were, incorporated or anything like that. So she's been here. I remember her mentorship just when I started to explore administration. So we want to thank her. So we'll be transitioning now after our keynote to hear some words, a summary of leadership on key points from my other good brother, Dr. Eldis Budai from Westbury, Superintendent at Westbury. And he's currently our Vice President moving into this year, was just elected as Vice President. I think you're going to hear some great information around leadership and some key points that he will summarize for us as we start to kind of transition and bring our program to an end.
Thank you, Anibal. I'm not sure. I hope that my voice is transcending as eloquently as possible. Is that the case?
Yes, sir. You hear you loud and clear, sir.
Thank you. So I just want to echo and thank all of our colleagues that have just presented today, and definitely to our Commissioner of Education, Dr. Betty Rosa, who just had amazing words to express to all of us and give us that hope and passion that we need during this fight in the cause of equity and diversity and inclusivity. So the first thing I just want to summarize, which is one of the most difficult things to do, is summarizing. I know that some of your students in the classes in your schools, you always say, let's just summarize what we talked about. And it is one of the most challenging. You have to recognize that when you're asking people to summarize. So acknowledging that these inequities, they do exist, is the first and foremost challenge when it comes to this work. But we have to acknowledge that they do exist to be able to do the work of completing, getting talented people into this workforce of administration and superintendency, and particularly people that come from diverse backgrounds. They use the word minority, but we're definitely not a minority group any longer, and definitely those that are women in leadership as well. The second step that we took a look at is establishing actionable steps to increase and retain the pipeline of these talented people. Sometimes it's very easy to get into the place of leadership, but sustaining that leadership and making sure that we retain the number of people in those positions is also going to be just as difficult when it comes to that. So for those of you that are in leadership right now and that understand that when you are at 90% or 100% of graduation rate, it is much more difficult for you to sustain that than it is for you to grow from 25% to 50%. So sustainability is something that is going to be number one, a challenge, but definitely something that we must partner with people to keep going. And also through the lens of equity, diversity, and inclusivity. In order for you to understand the work of equity, you have to understand that there are going to be challenges in that work. And as Dr. Mauricio said, the resistance that's going to be playing a part is going to help you support even moving forward. And then developing state level and local policies with a commitment to increasing the opportunity and securing superintendents of color, Latinos, and women. I will tell you right now that I am among the few superintendents on Long Island. And those of you that have heard and seen some of the news on Long Island, we have many challenges when it comes to hiring and retaining leaders of color, and definitely superintendents of color. And I'm one of the only, I believe, Latino with heritage of Latino background on Long Island serving as superintendent. Yet the population that we serve is very much, by and large, a great majority of students of color. So that is something that is alarming, and we will have to do something about it. Balancing of leadership, reflecting of students of student body is incredible. And so when we look at diversity, it's not just having diversity in populations and in communities that we reflect the student population, but also we should also serve in populations that are not students of color, so that we can demonstrate the power of equity, diversity, and inclusivity in those communities as well. Students that are not of color also should have the ability to also see that there is something out there that is different and that they can learn from. And we can learn from them as well. In addition to that, embracing heritage in the interest of collaboration towards a better understanding and the power of equity, diversity, and inclusivity is something that is critical. And some of these challenges can serve as an opportunity for us to educate people, for us to collaborate, unite, in the interest of equity is also critical. So make sure that you, when you are doing this work, as Dr. Betty Rosa indicated, let's make sure that we, number one, when we're taking out that garbage, that we learn from that garbage that we're taking out, so that we can learn from our mistakes and continue working with hope, passion towards this very important work, and changing the narrative from rhetoric to action, as Dr. Badilla said before. So I want to thank you all again for being here. It is important for you to know at the current time we have 64 people on this call, and the sacrifice that you make to be on this call is the first step of making sure that we are part of the change. And sometimes, sacrificing that time in order to build some momentum and collaboration to move towards this is the first step. So I want to thank you all for being here this morning and taking your precious time out of your families. Hopefully your families are with you learning about this, and your children, because we have to focus on this work at the current time. So thank you all for being here, and that was my summary.
Well, thank you, Dr. Budai. You got a lot of rounds of applause. You have a lot of support coming from your mentee, Maria Meyer, who's in the chat room, showing you a lot of love and really appreciating your leadership in Westbury. And I know they're lucky to have you, and we hope you're there for a long, long time moving forward. So I'm going to transition now to our president, NYSALAS president, Dr. David Mauricio. Again, you heard from him earlier, but superintendent in Peekskill City School District. He's revolutionizing Peekskill every day. He's there working, and he's doing some great things. He's bringing community schools there. He's Saturday Academy in it. Whether it's virtual or in person, he's doing some great stuff. And there's a lot of Peekskill pride going on across the country that you can see, or at least across New York State. I see the Twitter feed blowing up with all this peak skill pride. So I want to have him speak and provide some updates regarding NYSALAS. So Dr. Mauricio.
Thank you so much, Anibal, and great job, Yudis Budai. Great job, Dr. Padilla. Great job, Elsie Rodriguez, in your presentations, laying the foundation for where we're moving next. So I want to welcome all of you on behalf of New York State ALAS for joining us today on Saturday. You could be anywhere, but you're here with us, and that's very important to us, but it is most important to our collective us. And so we're very thankful that all of you are here today. It's important for me to share that you are part of history. You are part of an organization that is very young in its leadership. It's very young in its organizational history, and you are part of that. And so decades from now, people will look back and think about there were 70 people on a conference call on a Saturday. There were a few people who I'll recognize later who helped launch this organization. And so we want you to stay connected. We want you to stay part of this organization. And we thank you for being here as well. Last year, as you recall, Dr. Padilla, under his leadership as president and the board, put on our first conference at Columbia University. It was a wonderful conference. We held regional events throughout the state, and then certainly COVID hit, and we all had to readjust our days, our nights, our sleep to adjust to the realities that we were faced with as school leaders and district leaders. But we're back, and the team is really moving forward to make this a great year as well. I'd like to just take a moment to recognize, again, all of you for attending. Would like to give a couple of shout outs. I apologize, I only get to see about 30 people in my feed here. So if you are a superintendent that I don't recognize or someone else, just please share a little shout out by yourself. I want you to self-promote yourself as well. It's important for us to know who's here. But I did want to just take a moment. I saw him in my square here, Dr. Edwin Casada, who's the superintendent of Yonkers. Let's give him a big, huge round of applause and thank him for all that he does. And also Jaime Alicea from Syracuse. Let's give him a big round of applause. I see him here. He's doing phenomenal work. He has a very similar story to Dr. Betty Rosa. If I'm correct, Jaime, you began as a teacher assistant or a teacher aide as well. And here you are, superintendent of one of the biggest school districts in New York State. And so just give us a thumbs up if that's correct. Thank you. Okay. And let's recognize him. That is the pipeline that we are speaking about. And thank you for all your leadership as well. I also want to recognize that we have assistant superintendents here. We have principals. We have assistant principals. We have central office leaders. We have teachers. Let's give it up for our teachers who are here today. They are the future. They are the aspiring leaders of this organization. We have other members of school districts as well. I saw a board member from Yonkers who is here today. Let's give him a big round of applause. I believe he might be the board president still, but I know he once was. Big round of applause to him and all of our other board members who have joined us today. And we have non-for-profit organizations. We have for-profit organizations. You're going to hear from one of them later today. We're very excited to share that information with you, but we are very thankful for that. And then I'd be remiss in two things. One is I want to recognize our Peekskill City School District administrators, teachers, and staff who are here. Let's give them a big round of applause. I thank you so much for coming out. I did make it part of their tenure process, so that might be why they're here, but I know they would be here anyway. And then lastly, I want to thank our New York State ALAS board and our regional directors who are here today. I may not see all of them again. So if you are a regional director, if you can just put a comment, who you are, what region you represent, and a best contact information for people in your region to reach out to you. But let's give them all a big round of applause. They're part of this inaugural organization as well. And thank you for being here as well. So one of my mentors said, I don't know if it's his actual quote, and he may have paraphrased it, but he said, and I'm going to talk today very briefly about what we're going to do as an organization this year. And he said, a vision without an action plan is a hallucination. A vision without an action plan is a hallucination. And so you heard Dr. Badia and Elsie Rodriguez and Yudis Badai talk about moving from rhetoric to action. And I will tell you, as a 25 plus year educator, there are two things that can happen in organizations. Number one, is that people talk about the work, but it doesn't move forward into action. And the second thing is that we look at data and admire the data, but it doesn't drive what we do the next day and that year. And so when you think about that, it's very important as leaders that we think about and we're unapologetic for moving people, moving the organization, holding people to high standards, being very aggressive in our action steps that are keenly aligned to data, keenly aligned to the needs that we have. And we want to make sure that that is all part of your efforts. Do want to give a big shout out to Dr. Alex Marrero. He is treasurer for New York State ALAS and the new acting superintendent in New Rochelle. Let's give him a big round of applause. Want to thank him as well. And so as you think about, and as we close our conference very shortly, I want you to think about moving from rhetoric to action. That is critical. As a school district, I'll just share a couple of quick examples. And Jeff Bezos, who you know from a small company by the name of Amazon. And one of the things I was reading about him, and it was an interview about his leadership style. And he talked about something that was so profound to me, I actually brought it back to my team. And when he was asked, what is your main role as CEO and founder of one of the most influential companies in American history? What he said was, my main job is to find and make my system be designed around the notion of we have to have multiple pathways to yes. And when he talked about multiple pathways to yes, that was so profound to me, because how many of you have ever been in a meeting where people have said, that's not how we do things? That can't be done because of this. There's so many impediments in the way for us to accomplishing that task. And so now when I think about regulations and laws and realities and budgets and a variety of things, I think about with our team, we have to create multiple pathways to the word yes. And so a couple of the things that we've been able to accomplish, like many of you, is delivering, and we're a small community, 3,600 students, 4.5 miles as a district, but we've delivered over 100,000 meals to our families. We opened up Wi-Fi hubs because we knew Wi-Fi was an equity issue in our communities. And so we created our schools as Wi-Fi hubs when we were in virtual learning. And so parents would come and bring their children, we'd give them a Chromebook, and they'd have access to the online learning in our schools. And then when we had to open our schools, which were done recently about 3 weeks ago, then we moved our Wi-Fi hubs to churches in the community because we could no longer have the space for that to happen. And so we looked at other partners to be part of that and said, here's a call to action to our community. And then I followed the direction and great leadership of Dr. Badia, who was giving out MiFi units to families before anyone really thought about that effort. And so we were able to do that, but funding was an issue. So the call went out to the community, and over $35,000 was raised to purchase MiFi hubs from a community during a pandemic. We've launched a dual language program in our dual language classrooms at our elementary level. You know, one of the things that many of you are in a hybrid model. And so on Wednesdays, we have a model, and many of you have this, where kids aren't in the building. They're in virtual synchronous and asynchronous learning. So we took our yellow buses and we're putting food on our yellow buses and staff, and we're delivering the food throughout our community, which has been so impactful. We started that last Wednesday as well. And so we have been driven by the reality that we are not going to be defined this year by COVID-19. We will lead through it. And last night I dealt with 2 cases in our school district as late as 9 p.m. and are working through that all weekend long. And we will definitely lead through it. But we will not solely be defined through leading through COVID-19. We still have work to get done. My daughter's in pre-K. She will only be in pre-K 1 year. Your children will only be in the grade that they're in 1 year. And so despite everything that we're dealing with, we must lead forward to make sure that that year is impactful. I just read an article about kindergarten being a gap year. I'm not ready to give into that yet. I'm not ready for pre-K to be a gap year for my daughter or any other child in any of our districts already. I'm not throwing in the towel yet. I still think we have a year to accomplish great things, and together we're going to do that. So now I'm going to move to the next slide, and I'm going to close with what we are going to do as an organization. The first thing is that you heard about it today, and one of the things that we're going to do is develop a leadership pipeline. You heard about the numbers, the 27% of students from Latino backgrounds. When you sit at your tables and you look around the tables at various different levels, do you see representation based on the population that is served? Our Latinos, our women, our African-American leaders, our Native American leaders, our Asian leaders at the table of leadership when you look at the tables that you sit at. So one of the things we know is important is to make sure we develop a pipeline for you, whether you're a teacher, an assistant principal, that we develop you to become a principal. Principals become central office leaders. Central office leaders to become assistant superintendents. Assistant superintendents who are willing and have the skill sets to move to the superintendency, that we support you in that effort. So Elsie talked about the importance of Latinas and women in leadership. And so she's going to host, and we're very excited about this. So make sure you follow us on Facebook. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, and visit our website, www.nysalas.org. And Anibal, if you could put that in the chat, that would be great. She's going to get a women group of leaders to have a coffee chat on Saturdays. I believe it's going to be once a month. And those of you who want to move to the next level or be phenomenal and improve where you are now, make sure you join her group. And that will be exclusive to women and not only Latinas, but women. And so we're very excited about that. Let's give Elsie a big round of applause. That is going to be a huge for our communities. The next thing is we're going to lead efforts on conversations about leadership and developing that pipeline as well. And so this will be open to men and women. And this is going to be led by Dr. Roberto Padilla and also David Baez as past presidents of our organization. That will also be, I think, a Saturday chat as well, but keep an eye on our website. We'll certainly share the information out. And this will make sure it doesn't conflict with the women's leadership group, but this will be Saturday chats as well. We'll have guest speakers come on it and speak about their role, what they've been able to accomplish. And then lastly, we want to make sure that we're mentoring our new superintendents, that we're mentoring our new assistant superintendents and leaders in our organization, and that we build a pipeline in that. So many of you have great leadership, not only skills, but experience, and we're going to want to tap into that to build a mentoring model as well. And that is something that David Baez has spoke about for many years. And so that's something we're going to launch as well, and we'll continue as the years move forward. The next thing is making sure that we stay connected. And so we want to launch our digital newsletter. We want to enhance our website. So it's very important that we look at that work. I want to give a big shout out to Ramon Gonzalez, an extraordinary principal in New York City. Certainly, he is staying there because he wants to stay there. He could be superintendent today. He could be any position he wanted to, but we want to thank him for leading the website work. And that is something that's going to continue to grow. And then make sure you follow us on social media as well. We want to be able to share best practices, share ideas, so that we're all learning and improving together. But we also want to highlight and spotlight our Latino leaders in our state, and very important for us to be part of that effort. And then lastly, today is our fall virtual symposium, but we hope to be in person in the spring. We'll keep you posted on that, but it's very important that we will have a larger conference in the fall of this year, 2021. And we're very excited to be able to share that information as we move forward with that. So on behalf of our organization, on behalf of New York State ALAS, I'm David Mauricio. I'm so proud to be here with all of you. I'm so proud to be part of this team. And as you see on my left lapel is my Dominican roots, and on my right, or my right and my left, on my left lapel is from my mother's side, my Puerto Rican roots. So I'm very proud to be an American. I'm very proud to be Dominican, Puerto Rican, and my daughter is Polish and a little bit of Native American as well. So we are very proud as a multicultural family here. And I will just close with this. Let us all stay connected. Let us all be part of our own efforts in our own districts, but we are better if we are one. And so let us stay together. We thank you on behalf of our organization. Thank you so much. And I'm going to turn it back to you, Mr. Anibal Solar.
Well, thank you, Dr. Mauricio. Again, I don't know about you guys. I got goosebumps. I'm feeling good here. Dr. Rosa, again, we heard some powerful words. Now we heard some words from our president. And so we're excited under your new leadership, Dr. Mauricio, where you're going to help take the organization. I know that Mr. Baez and Dr. Padilla have set kind of an ongoing trajectory that every time it got better. So you've got some pressure on you moving forward. So tap into that Dominican and that Puerto Rican side and unify us and keep us together. I'm going to now transition.
I'm sorry. I just saw someone else in the chat. We got to give a big shout out. I steal all of his great ideas, and that is Dr. Ray Sanchez from Ossining, New York. I see him in the chat here. Let's give him a big round of applause. Been a phenomenal leader, great friend of mine for 20 years. He's been superb, and want to give him a big shout out as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we have a ton of people in the chat, so keep engaging in the chat, keep connecting, keep networking. We've even got some, what's important in this work is also we have allies and other individuals. And again, I mentioned this earlier, that this isn't just about being Latino or being Hispanic. We have some African-American brothers in the room. Dr. Anil Austin from State Education Department. He was in the chat. He commented. I don't know if he's still here. He leads the My Brother's Keeper work across the state. He works with the higher ed folks. I mean, he is a champion for all children. So if he's still in there, fantastic. Also want to mention some of our partners. Benchmark Education is in here. I saw Margie in the chat. I saw also Jeff Masline, who many of you have known him. I'm not sure where he's currently at, but he's also a partner out there doing the work. And so just want to make sure we take time to recognize them, that this is a collective effort. So we do, again, thank them for being here. We're going to transition now, kind of closing out the event with some special recognition before we get to our featured partner and highlighting them. Again, want to go back to Dr. Mauricio, who's going to give some, I think, important kudos to recognize our past and our history. Something that we're trying to do here, and those of you who may be a part of like a Greek organization, you know that history and foundation sets kind of the trajectory, and traditions set the trajectory. So we've been passing the torch over the last couple folks. So I'm going to go back to Dr. Mauricio, who's going to kind of recognize two individuals that we want to formally transition and recognize as an organization as we continue to grow. So Dr. Mauricio, back to you.
Thank you. I got so excited, I forgot I had another slide. An important role. So it is always important. And, when I read about Hispanic Heritage Month, I read about the importance of that time frame, September 15th through October 15th. We know that it is important because 6 countries found their independence during that time. So we know that that's very important. And we also know that Ronald Reagan, then president, made Hispanic Heritage Month, which used to be Hispanic Heritage Week, into Hispanic Heritage Month. And then maybe in the future it'll be Hispanic Heritage Year. But it is always important, and when you think about it, when you read about it, it is paying homage to those before you who led, who sacrificed, and who were leaders and contributed to this great American country. We also have to recognize individuals who have been leaders in this organization as well. And I found this quote, leadership begins with words and ends with action. And I think that's been a huge theme today, along with the equity theme. Next slide. And speaking of which, this first individual that I'd like to present to you, one of 2 very important individuals. You heard him speak today, Dr. Roberto Padilla. If you don't follow him on Twitter, please make sure you do. He does phenomenal work, as you heard about today. But he took the role during a very difficult time in our country. He took a role as a superintendent and added more to his plate. And he was our inaugural president. So he was formally elected as the president, and he served in that role for 2 years, from 2018 till just recently, 2020. I want to thank him. He is certainly a brother of mine. He is certainly someone that is inspirational to me and many others. And so this is the award we want to give him, or the recognition we want to give him. Let's all give Dr. Roberto Padilla a big round of applause and thank him for his efforts.
Dr. Padilla, I'm not sure if he's got his camera on anymore, if he wants to say anything. Just quickly, we do have some time, so you want to just say any comments? Again, being the first isn't always the easiest. So Dr. Padilla, if you're still in the room, we'd love to hear from you.
Yep, I'm here. Just again, want to say it's an honor and a privilege, and I'm very much looking forward to being part of the Past President's Council with Mr. Baez. And I'm just so encouraged and motivated to just keep going and doing this work much deeper. And I know it's possible because of all of you. So just thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Padilla. You know, he was an educator. He was a principal in New York City, led a phenomenal school there, breaking many barriers. He became a young superintendent as well. And he is a warrior of equity and is just doing amazing work in his district as well. And one of the things that I want us all to think about is take your time to develop your leadership skill sets before you take on your next position. And I think that if you talk to Dr. Padilla, he's going to tell you that he took his time, and all the leaders that we speak to, they took their time to develop their craft and then decide to move in a position that is more influential. And certainly his pathway has been one that we can all think about. So thank you again, Dr. Padilla. Next slide. So I lived in Buffalo, New York for many years. I'm originally from Queens, New York City. And I met David Baez decades ago. And one of the things that was very inspirational about him was his passion for multilingualism, multiculturalism, and Latino children and families. And so it's proud for me to introduce to you David Baez. He's a visionary, has a long history in leadership, in education. He was president of the New York State Association of Bilingual Education. He was an executive member of the National Association of Bilingual Education, serving as secretary, treasurer, and a two-time vice president as well. And he's just been a phenomenal leader and really launched us into this effort. So we were sitting in some of you may know Denise Gonyez from upstate New York, and we were sitting in her dining room, and David Baez called us together and said, we need an organization that is specific to Latino leaders and developing a pipeline. And he pushed us in that effort. He did all the research, the legal research. We are now incorporated as a non-for-profit organization. He found a lawyer to do that work for free. He really looked at all the incorporation work and just was really the spearheader of this. In other words, we would not be here today if it were not for him. So let's give our founding father, some of us call him El Padrino, of New York State ALAS. Let's give David Baez a big round of applause and thank him for all he does. His daughter is here today, Alicia Barinas, and she is also the president of New York SABE as well. And we want to thank her, who is here as well today. But David Baez, thank you so much for your leadership. And this recognition is truly an amazing recognition of your accomplishment. Thank you so much.
Dr. Mixo, I think David Baez is on the call. I'm not sure if he's unmuted, but David, we'd love to hear from you if you are able to say a couple words.
Yes, thank you so much, David, for those kind words, and to the association. This has been a long trek, a long journey, and it continues. And it makes me so proud and so rewarding to see the association continue to move forward. And I'm looking forward to continue my support. And none of this would have been possible without the support of the board of directors, the membership. And we are so appreciative of those that are on this conference call this morning, and we appreciate your continued support, and we look forward to moving forward and bringing great things and making New York State ALAS the best administrative organization in the state, looking out for the Latino concerns and needs. And again, David, thank you. Wish you the best of luck as president, and want to let you know and the others that you can continue counting on me for your support and for the collaboration and working together. And again, thank you and the best wishes, and God bless this association.
So thank you. A round of applause for David Baez. He has worked in 2 of the big 5 across New York State. So he has a big network, leading work in Rochester City Schools, worked in Buffalo Public Schools. He's done some national work with higher education and getting kids access to college. So he doesn't rest. And so we try to tell him to take it easy, but he doesn't listen. And I'm sure his daughter will add some comments in the chat that she always tells Poppy to slow down a little bit. But she takes after him, as Dr. Mauricio mentioned. We have a board member who's also the president of NYSALAS, which is another powerful organization doing some great work. And so just think about that unified effort together. And so you may have seen Alicia comment in the chat box. So his legacy, Dr. David Baez's legacy is still in the organization, although he's a past president, His daughter is actively involved, and she's doing some great work. And so thank you, David. You've done a lot for many of us in different capacities, including myself. So we really appreciate you, and thank you again. I'm going to just say that I'm a little jealous of these nice trophies. So I did say that these things are amazing. These eagles are amazing. Our theme has been taking flight. So I told David the other day I need to get one just to have one. I don't care. It doesn't have to have anything on the bottom. I just want one. So so we're gonna bring this event somewhat to a close, but we think it's really important to transition now to kind of focus on those individuals who help make these types of events possible and to make our organization continue to thrive and survive. I mean, this isn't something that anybody's making money off of. This is sacrificial work everyone's putting in. We work full-time jobs. We're doing this on the side. And oftentimes we can't do this work without the help of partners, without their contributions, whether it's monetary or time or resources. Those are the things that matter to us. And so, I want to make sure that we take a quick moment here. I'm going to transition back to Elsie Rodriguez, who's going to introduce our featured partner and their CEO. Elsie?
Thank you, Anibal. In keeping with the focus on supporting women and people of color in education, it is equally important to support minority and women-owned business enterprises. A really big thank you to our featured sponsor, ECG. Kendra McKilton is the chief executive of the ECG Group and manages and leads energy and performance contracts for school districts. They are your socially conscious choice. They have made diversity and inclusivity as part of their core values. They act as your district's advocate, collaborating with the proactively managing the energy service company so you can be confident your energy saving initiatives result in capital improvements and a world-class learning environment. They are described as collaborative, honest, trustworthy, responsible partners by their school district leaders with whom they work with. So I introduce our featured partner, ECG, Kendra McKilton.
Okay. Thank you so much, Elsie, for that kind introduction. And I just want to thank NYSALAS for the opportunity to participate in this very special event this morning. Just seeing the sheer positivity and camaraderie of this group has been very inspiring to me. And even though I'm in private business, I do share a lot of the same vision and goals with all of you to empower the people around me and to inspire other women into leadership roles. And so I'm just really appreciative of the work that you do, and I would love to continue to be a part of it. And Elsie, I'd love to be a part of your women's group if you need any support there. And equity was a big theme of today's meeting, and I want to just mention quickly that we are helping a lot of school districts address inequities in the physical environment as well. It's not talked about it quite as much, but the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights has reported that the low-income African-American and Hispanic students are more likely to attend poorly maintained schools. And so we are blessed to be able to offer a program that allows school districts to make great improvements to their facilities with no out-of-pocket costs. We're working with Roberto, Anibal, Eldis, funding millions of dollars of work to improve the learning environments in their districts. And we'd love to help anyone else who might be interested in learning more. But again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you this morning. It was a great way to kick off the weekend. And I look forward to working with everyone in the future on more events. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. She's being modest, woman CEO of a company of that stature in an industry where it is male dominated. So I'm going to just make sure I point that out, that ECG is, it's just part of her leadership style, being humble, but both Dr. Padilla and I are working on her to try to get her out there a little bit more. But she's definitely a juggernaut in the work. She's an advocate for kids, an advocate for schools. So don't let her fool you. Don't let her mild manner fool you. But she is definitely about equity and service and advocacy, and she does her work here. And we're proud to partner with her in our school district. I know Dr. Padilla is partnered with her. I know Dr. Budai is partnered with her and work with the school district. So we look forward to it, future collaborations. I think Elsie will definitely take you up on your offer. It is important to have women CEOs and both private sector and non-private and for-profit and education, because the leadership skills are universal. So thank you again, Kendra, for being with us today. So we're going to.
Solar?
Yep.
Thank you, Kendra. Can you put your contact information in the chat there so that I know I'm interested as a school district, and I know others may be as well. So if you could put that in there, we really appreciate your support today and moving forward. I'd also like to recognize Francois Acosta. He's from the National Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents. And just let me share with you, let's give him a big round of applause and welcome him. He's our representative on the East Coast, and the National Association is why we exist. And so they are the mother organization, and then there are state affiliates. Last night, I had the opportunity to join their executive director and be part of their regional call or national call for presidents of state affiliates as well. And let me just share with you, Mr. Solar, myself, Dr. Padilla, and also the Chancellor, Richard Carranza from New York City, are graduates of the ALAS National Superintendents Leadership Academy, specifically designed for Latino administrators, and there are others. So those of you who are interested in that effort, make sure you reach out to them via their website. And last night we heard that they are creating a Principals Leadership Academy as well. And that's something very important for those of you who are interested, and they support you financially. They support you as part of the effort. I would not be where I am today if it was not for ALAS. Let's give ALAS, Francois Acosta, and the whole team a big round of applause, and thank you for all that you do.
Yeah, and we have also Mike Anita Perez, who I believe is also cohort 4. She's also on the call as well from the Rochester region. So just want to make sure we point that out. We have a lot of ALAS SLA alumni in New York. It's part of the movement. So thank you. I'm going to, President, if you don't have anything else, I'm going to kind of close this out and bring us hopefully to the end here. We have a cohort 10 in the house, I think I just saw. So that's the latest group. So, wow, you know, I'm cohort 1, by the way. So I want to let y'all know, okay, foundational member here of ALAS SLA. So very competitive, but no, just kidding. Proud to be in that inaugural cohort. So we, again, want to thank our partners, ECG, doing great work across the state of New York. I'm sure they're going to go worldwide once we connect with all us Latino leaders across the state. They're going to be a national provider of the EPC process. But want to close out and just say thank you to all of you for giving up about an hour and a half of your Saturday morning. We know that you could be doing a variety of things. You could be on your Peloton. You could be doing all kinds of stuff right now. So this is a good reason not to be working out, to be with us. But no, in all seriousness, we just want you to stay connected. You know, I put our website on there. You know, follow us on Twitter. We are, you know, we are like anything else Latino. We're grassroots. We are working hard. We're trying to manage multiple things. So bear with us if sometimes we're not as responsive as you like. I did put in the chat our email address, but you can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. Again, we're just really thankful for you guys being here. We did record today's session, although I had to start kind of over and re-record, but we will be posting this so that you can have, you know, go back, share with your colleagues, let them know what we do. I can't wait till we're in person, because I know as familia, it just feels different. You can give abrazos, you can give hugs, you can show that Latino love that is just inherent to our people and to our culture. And so just wanted to thank you all again. Just before we close, though, just for the good of the order, anyone, any of the board members want to just give a closing remark kind of before we leave? We do have, again, we have some really special people on our board: Syracuse Superintendent Jaime Alicea, Dr. Gonzalez, and Ramon Gonzalez in New York City, who, like Mauricio says, he could easily be a superintendent tomorrow, so don't let him fool you. He's doing phenomenal work at the forefront. National speaker as well. So anybody, just any closing remarks before we say goodbye to everybody?
And even just, I would like to just make sure that people understand that this is just one moment in time. and that this has to transcend throughout the entire year, every day. So keep inspired, keep connected, and please make sure that you call on each other to get support as much as you need.
Agree. And I just wanted to say that we will be posting those coffee meetings, those morning meetings shortly, because I think it's really going to be important to begin the conversation, but then move forward with action and begin this mentorship and supporting and creating a pipeline. And even if you're a teacher in the group and you're a woman and you aspire to be a superintendent, this is the time to start thinking about that, and again, to support one another. So I thank everyone who attended today's meeting.
Dr. Alexander, any closing remarks from Syracuse? Dr. Gonzalez?
I would only add that please take a moment to take care of yourself in this pandemic. We often are so busy taking care of others. Take a moment to take care of yourself. Our community is strong because of you, and we can't get stronger if we don't take care of ourselves. Have a great weekend, guys. Enjoy the rest of it.
Again, good morning, everyone. I just want to say that I am very proud to be associated and to be part of the NYSALAS. Great job to all the presenters this morning. We're looking forward to a new year, the new leadership. Thank you, David. Thank you, Roberto. We're working on Ramon.
Y de mi parte, que viva la hispanidad, que viva la raza latina. Cuídense mucho todos.
And in typical GOAT fashion, greatest of all time fashion, Edwin Casada comes through from the vehicle to give us some words in our native language. So those of you who don't know what he says, the Rosetta Stone is on sale currently for the pandemic. So please subscribe. Now, Dr. Alex Marrero?
Yep. I think it'll be appropriate to say we need to get an Eagle Award for the MC of the morning, Aníbal Soler. Great job, sir. Leader amongst leaders. Thank you.
Yes, great job, Aníbal.
Yeah, and just real quick, that was Alex Marrero, who's trying to hide here. He's, again, as Dr. Mauricio said, new acting superintendent in New Rochelle, which is potentially record-breaking as well. Maybe the first Latino superintendent in that community as well.
That is correct. The first one. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
And he's very modest. He's very modest. We have the same barber. He's very modest. Don't let him fool you. But he also is on the national board for ALAS as well. So he's also a national board member here in New York State. Has been doing great work. Was also part of the SLA cohorts. So someone you want to get connected to in the New Rochelle area, I think. But he did put his contact information. Anyone else? Any other board members? Rochester region. Carlos Cota, I believe he's still on. I'm not sure if he's still on. We have folks in every part of the state. Alicia Barinas, I'm not sure if she's still on as well, from Buffalo, Western New York. Just want to close this out. Anyone else for the good of the order?
Aníbal, I'll just say a very big thank you to everyone. And again, keep up the great work. Ramon was right. Take care of yourselves. Don't follow me because I don't, but follow his words. He's very wise in that. But I will try moving forward. But thank you again, everyone, on behalf of New York State ALAS. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. We thank you so much. We will be here for you. You be here for us. Thank you. Adios. Si se puede.